start. So we'll bear with few minutes. So then we can start by another few minutes. Thank you.
It's doing that.
Bernama, Adi bernama. Ya, enggak.
මේකනේ off වෙලා නේද? මේක off කරලා.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Nice to see you all here. See, more people are interested in listening to this one. I'm Gangadhar from the SLIDA part. So I'll be handling some logistic arrangements. Let me start the session formally. This is the third webinar on its kind of that SLIDA is conducting for months here. So this webinar is on Sri Lanka electronic government and procurement. To formally start the session, I would like coordinate include Dr. W. Vijayakon, Additional Director General of SLIDA, to mark the inauguration of our session. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gangadhar. Thank you very much. So then, first of all, I welcome you all on behalf of SLIDA for this particular discussion.
It's the sound.
Sir, we can't hear you. There must be a problem with your connection. So there must be a little connection problem. So until our resource person are on board, I just need to say a couple of things. We are at the same time we are broadcasting this one via our Slila website as well as YouTube channel. If you have some problem logging into this Microsoft MS Teams, of course you can just go to your Slila web page, Slila official Facebook page, so that you can easily watch it through web screens also. And of course, this will be going to happen around nearly 2 hours. Of course, you are very much welcome to have questions in between, but because of we have some time constraints, please keep your questions at the later part of session. Right. Thank you.
Me? Ganga, am I audible?
We can hear, but we can't see you.
Okay. So I hope now you can see. It's okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear, but I think that's all right, sir. I think we can can't see you.
Now okay, sir. Now okay.
We can see you.
Both are okay.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Sorry for the delay because of this network connection and all. Again, welcome you all on behalf of SRIDA to start the webinar on e-government procurement. So this is interesting and also important topic nowadays because many people have requested us to have this type of webinar. Therefore, we gave priority for e-government procurement webinar in this time. And many of our participants of the different types of SRIDA programs and also our diploma programs interested in this particular subject, and also in the national level, this is the main requirement of talking about this e-government procurement. The government also took a number of efforts to create this awareness among public and also among our public officials. So therefore, SRIDA Director General informed us to organize this type of webinar. This is the results of this particular effort. So, first of all, I would like to invite our Director General to start this discussion with welcome of our chief guest or guest of speakers of this particular webinar. Dear Madam, please deliver welcome speech on this particular discussion.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Vijay Kon. I'm sure you can hear me. Am I correct?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to appreciate your enthusiasm to be with us to discuss this valuable topic, e-government procurement. To ensure a good governance for public sector of a country, there must be many characteristics we have to be seriously considered. Transparency, accountability, efficiency, effectiveness, financial management, participation, etc., etc. But there is a major thing as procurement which can connect all these characteristics of good governance to ensure public sector credibility. On such a background, procurement is a major thing we should not neglect, and governments have to be very serious about procurement. It means when we consider procurement, there are goods, services, consultancies, etc. When we consider this global arena, electronic procurement management, government procurement is the current trend, because without considering this global trends today, we cannot go for any procurement procedure. Now, if we consider the participants over here with us, all of them are practitioners in procurement management of public sector of Sri Lanka. These practitioners are very serious about their theoretical knowledge also. That's why they are coming to SLEDA to enhance their capacities on many areas, including this government procurement management systems. I strongly believe theory without practice is infertile and practice without theory is blind. Therefore, we should not be blind or we should not be infertile. Therefore, I think this is a high time to share this knowledge on e-government procurement with the public professionals of Sri Lanka. On this background, I cordially invite to this welcome speeches the chief guest, Mr. Taisuke Miao, Senior Procurement Officer from ADB. Not only him, the chief speakers of us, Mr. David McDermott, International eGP expert from EDB, and Mr. Chamikara Ranatunga, EDP capacity building expert from EDB. Thank you so much for your presence and thank you so much for your future contribution, and thank you for the learning partners over here, public professionals of Sri Lanka, who joined with this forum, and I'm pretty sure with the contribution and enthusiasm of our Additional Director General Dr. Vijay Kaur and our Senior Consultant Mr. Gangadhara, I strongly believe that this will be a very fruitful program for us mean for SEDA and for all the public professionals who are engaging with this discussion on e-procurement government. Thank you so much for you all, and over to you for the continuation of the program. Thank you so much again.
Okay, thank you, Madam. Dr. Padipa Serasinghe, Director General SLEDA, for delivering a welcome speech. So then, I hope you people understand this particular exercise we can't do without support from these involving agencies. So this is actually main party of this particular eGP implementation in Sri Lanka, ADB, Asian Development Bank. So from their side, how they contribute to this particular discussion and also contribute to this introducing this e-government procurement in Sri Lanka, their contribution. To talk about their contribution, may I kindly invite Mr. Taisuke Miao, Senior Procurement Officer from Asian Development Bank. Mr. Tai, over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is Taisuke. And first of all, thank you so much for preparing this important webinar. eGP brings, as DG Serasinghe already talked about, but the eGP brings economy, efficiency, fairness, transparency, quality, and value for money in public procurement. ADB supports development of eGP system in our client countries. Many countries have been put effort to develop the system. In South Asia, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan developed the system which are used for ADB funding project. In Sri Lanka, eGP Secretariat is working hard to develop system so-called Promise. ADB supports it strongly through sending experts and share knowledge and experience we have. Just recently, we had 2-day online session among officials who developed and operate eGP system in South Asian countries, which would be very useful for the Sri Lankan team. The development takes time as significant human and financial resources are required. And the process is not short. IT system is developed phase by phase. Users need to be familiar with. Once developed, we start to use as a pilot basis, then review and adjust as necessary. Technology development is going on, so updating the system needs to continue. Today, I'm pleased to see the initiative taken by SRIDA as the Center for the Sri Lankan Public Sector Learning and Development. SRIDA's engagement for providing eGP-related know-how to public officials would be much appreciated, as it's an indicator of future sustainability. I'm so pleased to see Mr. David McDermott here, who is an eGP expert with long-time international experience, including system assessment for ADB, and now an advisor to support promise development. Without his assessment, including various aspects such as functionality and security, ADB cannot start using the system for our funding procurement. And Mr. Chamikara Ranatunga, who has been one of the key persons in eGP Secretariat to promote Promise system in Sri Lanka. I personally and highly appreciate passion and dedication to the public work presented every day by all the public officials in Sri Lanka under the difficult situations in the country. Attending webinar today would also be a challenge for some of the participants. I appreciate much in it. I hope and I'm sure that today's webinar session is useful and informative for all the participants and helpful to further enhance the system development and its use. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taisuke, Senior Procurement Officer from ADB, for the introduction of this particular eGP program and of their contribution for Sri Lankan implementation of eGP procurement in Sri Lanka. So let me introduce our program and give a brief introduction about overall how we have planned our discussions today. So in our webinar consists of 4 sessions. So session 1, we are going to talk about basically the presentation on implementation and advantages of government procurement, Mr. Chamikara Ranatunga. And session 2, quick overview of Sri Lanka eGP system. Again, Mr. Ranatunga will deliver that part also. Then after that, Mr. Ranatunga and Mr. McDermott will take the session 3. This is basically the discussion on with the especially e-government procurement, international best practices. Then session 4, question and answer session, we open for question and answers for all our participants. So the 2 speakers with us today to have this particular fruitful discussion, Mr. David McDermott, international eGP expert from ADB side, and also Mr. Chamikara Ranatunga, eGP capacity building expert, ADB. Let me introduce these 2 resource persons, brief introduction about these 2 resource persons. First, I'll give you a brief introduction about Mr. David McDermott. David McDermott, international public e-procurement consultant. He obtained his Bachelor of Science degree and also Master of Education degree, Master of Business Administration degree. He started as a geologist, as career, a teacher, then 20 years of public and private sector senior manager positions in oil industry especially. He has worked there. And water resources, executive development side, and public transport, agriculture, and public procurement sectors. He has worked those areas, especially therefore he has very good working experience background. So he will contribute and share his knowledge with us, especially regarding this public e-government procurement. So briefly, I introduce Mr. McDermott, then I'll come to Mr. Chamikara Ranatunga. Mr. Chamikara Ranatunga now is working at the, especially this e-government procurement specialist, especially the conducting training for capacity building for e-government procurement. So Mr. Ranatunga, he also has a very good academic qualification. He has graduated and obtained his BA degree, especially combined degrees in international business and marketing from London Metropolitan University, United Kingdom. Then he again he has obtained his master's degree MBA in finance, University of Bedfordshire, University of United Kingdom. And he has very good working experience and also professional qualifications in diploma in diplomatic relations, master in Microsoft projects, and also he has worked in different IT related positions. So with this brief introduction, may I call upon first Mr. Chamikara to start the session, the first session, presentation on Sri Lanka's journey to eGP progress of system implementation and advantages of e-government procurement in current economic crisis. So, Mr. Chamikara Ranatunga, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Hope I'm audible. Especially, I would like to thank you, the Director General, Dr. Pradeep Rasail Singh, because before I start my presentation, I would like to give you sort of a brief description on how we merged with SRIDA. Myself, I'm a consultant from Asian Development Bank, and I'm actually working for eGP Secretariat as the capacity building expert. So my job is to build up the awareness on eGP, and then slowly by surely train all the government procuring entities. We have identified about 2,500 procurement entities in Sri Lanka. And in addition to that, there are about 300,000 vendors. So building capacity and training all these organizations and vendors is a huge, formidable task. And David McDermott, our international eGP expert, proposed me that I should get the support of the organizations such like SLIDA. So I was wondering, because David is from Australia, and David has researched about SLIDA and found out that the service SLIDA had done over the years, and he is the one who had advised me to have discussions with SLIDA. So I informed the project director of the eGP Secretariat and the Ministry of Finance officials, and together we contacted the Director General of SLIDA, and she immediately arranged a meeting with all the relevant officials, and she proposed it's a great thing and SLIDA would like to take on the challenge, and then she said that she will arrange certain webinar programs, training of trainer programs, and also SLIDA promised us that they will include eGP as a module in certain programs, diploma programs they are currently conducting. So these discussions actually happened about 2 months ago, and within these 2 months, SLIDA has done a tremendous task. They have already included the eGP module in one of their diploma program, and also they have arranged webinars like this, and also they invited me for certain training programs which they are conducting for their trainees. So really appreciate your effort here and thank you very much. And this is a national task, and then once this particular webinar was arranged, David was invited because David is the one who had initiated to get this support from SLEDA. And now today's objective is basically to provide you some brief introduction on how the implementation happens in Sri Lanka, the development so far with related to eGP. And in addition to that, we want to share the international best practice on eGP. So I think there are more than 300 participants, viewers here. So we're so glad that this number of audience got captured. And so this message goes to the procurement practitioners around the country, and it's a very good thing. So David is with us today, to share the best practices. So my task is to, briefly give you a short description on the current progress and the slight history on the Sri Lankan eGP development and implementation. Thereafter, I will quickly go through with you the eGP system. So you may want to have a look and just to go through with the system, certain functionalities within 15 to 20 minutes time. We will try to check that out, and then we will have a sort of an interview with David. I have a lot of questions with me to raise at him, and then he will share his international best practices on eGP. And you can also join us. It will be a sort of an interactive session. That's how it should be. And then, we can share experience and we can move forward. Right. So I would like to start with my presentation now. I'm going to share my screen. Just bear with me a second, please. I'm trying to share my presentation with you. It's actually loading up, so hope in a short while you'll be able to see that. So my objective is to provide you the how the eGP had evolved in Sri Lanka, and then what are the legislations for implementing eGP in Sri Lanka.
Mr. Chamikara,
yes.
have you shared your...
Yes.
We can't see your presentation.
Yeah, it's loading up, but it's taking slightly a long time than I expected. So if you want, I can share my. I think I have already shared the presentation with Ishani, so he can also help out. But
Shall I ask them to upload?
Please, if you don't mind. Until it's get uploaded, so I will, keep talking about how the eGP had evolved in Sri Lanka. In 2016, eGP readiness assessment was conducted by USAID, and even before that, there were some readiness assessments being conducted. So eGP readiness assessment is basically to find out whether the country is ready, whether the supply community, the procuring entities are ready to accept eGP. So the connectivity should be there, IT literacy should be there. So in Sri Lanka, eGP readiness assessments have been conducted by ADB also before USAID in 2016. And in this 2016 assessment, I was also lucky to be as a resource person for that particular assessment. Found out that the country is now ready. The percentage of the people who have IT literacy is acceptable, and the vendor community and they are also having the connectivity and the internet facilities and things which are required for eGP implementation. Then cabinet approval was granted in 2017 for the eGP implementation in the country, and the cabinet had appointed a steering committee, and according to the recommendations of the steering committee, eGP Secretariat was established in 2018. And then at that time, eGP Secretariat had the project director and only few staff members. Mr. Algama, the Director General at that time, I need to mention his name here. He had contributed a lot in implementing eGP in Sri Lanka. In 2019, there was a circular issued by the Public Finance Department on eGP implementation. And in this particular circular, there were 6 areas, special focused on 6 special areas, which includes the registration of the procuring entities, the registration of the liaison officers, registration of the vendor community, and the procurement plan publication, the procurement notice publication, and implementing shopping procurement procedure. So those are the 6 things which highlighted in the 2019 circular on the eGP implementation, 8/2019 circular. So you can access this particular circular through web. If you go to the Promise website, Promise is the Procurement Management Information System of Sri Lanka, PROMISC.lk, promise.lk. That is the eGP web portal of the government of Sri Lanka. So if you access this web portal, you will be able to find out this particular circular. And even before that, there was a circular issued in 2018 as well. But what is the most important circular is the 8/2019 circular, which instruct the procuring entities, the government procurement entities, the government organizations to register in the eGP portal. Now, this is something we need to elaborate more on, because even though this circular was issued in 2019, most of the organizations have not yet registered in the eGP system. We have identified there are about 2,500 procurement entities in Sri Lanka, and out of them only about 227 procuring entities have registered in the system already. So I think there are more than 300 procurement practitioners here in today's session. So when you go back to your offices, please discuss among your circles and have a discussion with your head of the organizations and inform them that the eGP implementation have been started in Sri Lanka, and that is the responsibility of the government organization to register in this particular web portal and start the functionalities of this eGP system. Now, I hope you can now see my screen, the presentation. Can you now?
It was there.
Yes. I think you'll be able to see it now.
We have shared presentation, Mr. Chamikara. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see the presentation now.
We can operate if you ask us to move the slide, then we can operate here.
Okay, I am moving the slides. Can you see them? So this is the first slide. The project name says Electronic Government Procurement.
Yes.
Can you? Okay, so this is the first slide. So I can move the slide. So I will continue. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, this is what I have explained earlier. The eGP readiness assessment. Sri Lanka scored overall rating of 2.5 out of 4. That was in 2016. Under the USAID assistance, this particular readiness assessment was conducted. And then the South Asia Region Public Procurement Conference was held in 2017, and then that time Director General of Public Finance promised the other countries of South Asia that Sri Lanka also will join eGP, and like you said, the cabinet word, and it got the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers in 2017, and the eGP Secretariat was established in 2018. So Theekshana R&D, Theekshana Research and Development of the University of Colombo was the development partner, and hardware implementation partner was the Sri Lanka Telecom, and the project was commenced, the eGP development project was commenced in 2019. So this is the Sri Lanka joined in 2019, but when it comes to the eGP history, I think David will explain this more clearly. In Canada started 1991, and Singapore eGP started in 1998, and Bangladesh joined eGP in 2011. Sri Lanka was somewhat late to join eGP, because most of the countries in South Asia have already developed the eGP and in the phase of implementing it. Especially the countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, India, they will have started. And even Maldives started their readiness assessment last year to join the eGP process. So these are the returns in summary of eGP. You have transactional efficiency, increased competition, and leverage buying power, and the standardization. So the transactional efficiency is all about the reduction of the procurement cycle time, and also saving from the advertising cost. Now, you should publish your procurement notices in all three languages as per the regulations in Sri Lanka. In the newspapers, you have 2019 circular on eGP implementation. The government organizations have been requested to publish the procurement notice in the eGP web portal. That's a mandatory requirement, even though most of the government organizations are not yet doing it. But the reason IMF discussions also, it was highlighted, the eGP implementation in Sri Lanka, and therefore it will be sort of a mandatory factor, and please notice that. So the registration is a must for the government organizations, and also the publication of the procurement notices. So that will improve the transactional efficiency on eGP, and also the increased competition. So this means the average number of bidders who submit quotations or bids for a procurement would be high when it comes to e-procurement, because it would be more flexible, easier, and the time saving, the efficiency is there. So the tenderers would more likely to publish bids than in the manual procurement process. So this will increase the cost reductions for the country, and that will be great saving of eGP for a country. Then leveraging buying power means the aggregation of user requirements within and across organizations. So this aggregation would help not only the efficiency, but also the data inflow, and that would be helpful for the forecasting of procurement related information, the demands for the supply, and things like that, and also the standardization. Standardization includes the process management, document management, auditing, and the eGP system databases provides information for audit, transparency, linking persons to actions, researching trends to improve the process. So these are the returns of eGP. And if I move on to the next slide, you will be able to see the advantages of the eGP in the current economic crisis. So I think this is something very important, because we know Sri Lanka is having a serious crisis here, and we are talking about system change. And this is one of the area where you can help for the system change. If you are a government officer, if you are a supplier for the government organizations, if you are doing business with the government, if you know these advantages, you would definitely think to use e-procurements. Love the country, and if you want to get rid of this crisis, and if you want to do your bit for the country, you go through these advantages, please, and then definitely you will talk to your organization heads and with the circles, and eGP implementation would be sort of a thing that you feel which is important. It says implementation of eGP will improve the country's rankings, such like ease of doing business index. Then the system now. The system development, this particular eGP system development in Sri Lanka is done by a Sri Lankan company. So there is no US dollar involvement, development. So that's it. So this will fulfill the expectations of the donor community. ADB, World Bank, keep asking us whether it's possible for ADB documents to be published in the eGP system, World Bank documents. So they are keen on this. So their expectations, if we could fulfill, it would be, it would help the transparency, accountability, and the procurement process. Then it gives the value for money benefits, plus transactions, and now the paper cost has been very high. This would be one of the solution. And then no repeated annual supplier registrations by the procuring entities. Procuring entities don't need to do annual supplier registration. I think Minister of Finance is about to release another circular on that. Register your suppliers in the eGP system. No need to do the annual supplier registration. And then facilitate the work from home environment. People talk about the transport costs and working from home. It's, in developed countries, it is being used frequently, work from home. But in Sri Lanka, even though we talk about it, there are a lot of barriers. Work from home. If you are a procurement practitioner, if eGP is there, work from home would be a solution. And also the higher trust by the vendor community. Once the transparency is there, the vendors are more likely to trust the process, and they will engage in e-procurement practices. So these are the eGP coverage. We are planning not only the central government, not only the ministries and the department, but the provincial level as well, and also the public enterprises, state-owned enterprises. So it's basically all the government organizations are targeted by the eGP development and implementation. So the basic eGP system, I don't want to go into details on this. All the functionalities which practiced in eGP systems around the world are being in this eGP development in Sri Lanka. So this includes e-tendering, e-submission, electronic opening, electronic awards, and also open contracting data standards, OCD standards. So, right. So we are talking about the functionalities of the eGP system. These functionalities are being categorized into the procurement processes, procurement procedures, then the certain functionalities such like open contracting data standards. The AD is helping the government of Sri Lanka to implement open contracting data standards. The eGP Secretariat officers are being trained by the Asian Development Bank assistance through the Asian Development Bank assistance on open contracting data standards that will help the government to standardize their data and forecast the future, the demands of the procurement process. which help not only the government but also the supplier community. Next, I would like to, I have not yet finished the presentation, but however, I would like to take some time now because I have talked a lot and might get bored otherwise. So therefore, I want to demonstrate the eGP system which is presently being developed. So I will share my screen and try to show you the eGP system. Now there is the live site is promise.lk, but if you want to practice the functionalities of the eGP system, you should use the training.promise.lk. So training.promise.lk is the training site of the eGP system. Promise.lk is the live site of the eGP system. So if you can see my screen, now can someone confirm that, whether you can see my screen?
Can see it.
Yeah, so can you see the web portal, Electronic Government Procurement eGP System, the web portal? Hope you can see that, right? Right. Okay, so here I have logged in as a liaison officer. You can see the name called Fernando. So that's the liaison officer here. So he has actually logged into this training site, training.promise.lk. Later on, I will show you how to register into this eGP system. So after registering, the user will get a password to his email, and using that email and the password, the user can log in. Now, when you use this eGP portal, you can log in as a liaison officer, you can log in as a vendor, you can log in as a technical evaluation committee member, procurement committee member, bid opening committee member. So there are several users. Now here I have logged in as a liaison officer, just to show you what are the certain functions of a liaison officer. Okay, one thing is procurement notice publication. This is not about e-procurement, but the publication of the procurement notice. Now at present, you are publishing your procurement notices in the newspapers. But in 2019 circular says the procurement notices should be published in the eGP web portal in addition to publishing in the newspapers. But this in addition part will be taken out soon. What organizations do right now, they publish a very short notice in the newspaper to save money, and the full description is published in the eGP web portal. I'm now going to show you how a liaison officer do that. So you go to procurement notice, click on add new, and then you get a form, this form, public procurement notice, publish procurement notice. Here you enter the title of the procurement, say procurement of laptops, the bid number, bidding process start date, and notice to be displayed onwards, the bid closing date, and bid opening date, the procurement method, and funding source, say foreign, the geographic location for the goods to be received, then a brief description, and also needs to add the common procurement vocabulary code. This is the common procurement vocabulary code. In the eGP system, you have sort of standard decodings for all the items you want to procure, or the goods, works, or services you want to procure. They are as these sort of categorizing methodology is used. Now you see the first category is agricultural, farming, fishing related products. So under these main categories, there are subcategories like these. So under subcategories also, so different categorizations. So at the end, you will see the actual product. So there are over 10,000 items here, the goods, works, and services here. So so these are called CPV codes, Common Procurement Vocabulary Codes. So from here, you have to select what is the exact the CPV code for your product, and then you can upload your bidding document also, and you can publish it. So it's a very simple process, publishing the procurement notice. This is not actually a sort of an e-procurement, but I just wanted to show you one of the functionality of the eGP system. One of the functions organizations are commonly used. Right. And in addition to that, the procurement plan publication, there's procurement plan. You can go to add procurement plan, and you can upload the procurement plan here. You can see add the new title, choose file and upload. So you can download the Excel sheet. Now here you see the download Excel. Once you download the Excel, it is the Excel sheet of the format of the procurement plan as per the 2006 procurement guide and procurement manual. So that plan is there, the procurement plan. You have to complete that plan and upload it. So it's a very simple thing, adding the procurement plan and publishing it into the system. So these two requirements have been mentioned in the 8/2009 circular. So these are the things you need to abide: the registering your organization, registering the liaison officer, publishing the procurement plan, and publishing the procurement notices. In addition to that, if you are a practitioner of the government procurement entity, if you want to introduce e-procurement in your organization, you should inform your vendor community. You need to send the details of the vendors to the eGP Secretariat, and the eGP Secretariat will actually do the training for these vendors. So that's an ongoing process. So I will actually share my contact details at the end of this session, and then you will be able to contact me directly. And if you want to join, if your organization wants to join, you can directly contact me and I would help, and also to arrange the vendor training programs. So I will quickly show you how to initiate an e-procurement also. Before initiating an e-procurement, procurement plan needs to be published. I just showed you how that could be done. So once you publish your procurement plan, you can view your plan. Once you click the view plans, you will be able to view your plan. And then you have to select the document plan from this drop-down list, because a particular liaison officer might have uploaded several procurement plans, annual procurement plan, or in a particular annum, there can be separate procurement plans. So that is the first thing. You have to select the procurement plan. And from the procurement plan only, you could start e-procurement. So I am just randomly selecting one item of the procurement plan, and then go to action button, click on add procurement, and then you get this first screen on the primary details. Now here you are going to enter the primary details of the e-procurement which you want to conduct. Say the procurement method is shopping, procurement category is goods, quotation, the bid number you have to enter, the title of the procurement. Let's say the title of the procurement is procurement of laptops. In the total cost estimate, this is not going to be visible for the vendors, but for the liaison officers information only. So you can mention the total cost estimate, the funding source, and the invitation for e-quotations, the date you want to invite e-quotations, quotation process starting date, the quotation closing, and the quotation opening day. So that you have to mention here. And then you go to save it, and then you go to the next tab, which is the process details. So here you have to say activity list is here. From this activity list, still not visible. Once you see, you'll be able to see that shortly. So this is the activity list. So in this activity list, you have to select what particular activities you need to conduct here for this particular e-procurement. So whether you want to have the technical evaluation committee, whether you want to do the clarifications, whether you want to evaluate online, whether you want to provide the recommendations online. So you have to make your selections like this and then save. And after saving, the system will indicate the certain functions you have mentioned, and accordingly you have to provide the related inputs for the functions you have selected. For example, you selected that there is a procurement committee, and then you have to add the details of the procurement committee. I'm now going to add the procurement committee. You see the Add PC button here. So just click that, and once you click it, you will be able to see this particular screen where you have to enter the appointment letter. The level of authority needs to be selected, whether it's a regional procurement committee, project procurement committee, like that. Then the procurement committee members. So if they are in this particular database, you can select them. So that means these procurement committee members have been using the eGP before, so they will be in the database if they have become members in the past. Otherwise, you have to add them into the system by completing these details. So in that way, you can add committee members, and in the same manner, you can add the technical evaluation committee members and bid opening committee members likewise. Then once you've done with that, you can go to the next stage, which is the bidding document preparation. So the system actually helps the liaison officer to prepare the bidding documents. So you see here, you have to first select which document. So if it is a shopping procurement, there are two standard shopping documents. So you can select, according to your need. And then the ITV, you can view it as a PDF. The data sheet is here. So you have to do the customizations in the data sheet. Then you have to add the schedule of requirement, technical specifications, quotation submission. So once you complete this particular part, you can go into the next one, which is the selecting vendors. So if it is shopping method, you have to select the vendors. So the vendors have to register in the system in advance. So once they register and once you select your particular product, the system matches the vendors with the product you have selected, and then list out the vendors. So you can select the vendors, and finally you can send your invitation. Now in the final screen, you see you can download the IFEQ document. You can mention the system that you got the technical evaluation committee recommendations and the PC approval for the bidding document or the e-quotation document. Then you can publish it, and then the vendors will receive the invitations, and then they can submit their quotations, and then electronic opening can be done by the liaison officer, and if needed, electronic evaluation and electronic awards can also be done. So I just wanted to do a quick demonstration, about a 10-15 minutes demonstration, just to give you sort of an idea how this has been developed. In a training program, we will first register you into the eGP system training site, and we will conduct sort of interactive session with you, and you register as a liaison officer, and then you do the publication by yourself, and you register as a vendor, and you do the bid submission, you do the opening, you do the evaluation, so that practically we will learn how the functions work in this eGP system. I'm going to log out as the liaison officer, and trying to quickly show you how to register into this system. You see, first of all, before you use the live site, it is advisable that you use the training site beforehand. So even if you do any mistakes, that won't harm the live operation. So the training.promise.lk is the training site. You can go to registration here. You see the registration, go to procuring entity, and then you get this particular form here. Still loading up. That's the procuring entity and the liaison officer registration form. So you can fill that form in and submit it to us. And this is the form, the procuring entity registration form. And then at the bottom of this form, you can see the liaison officer registration. So once you submit this form, system will send an automated letter to the head of your organization requesting his approval for you as the liaison officer. So head of the organization has to sign, get a printout of that automated letter, sign, and send it to via email to the eGP secretariat, and the eGP secretariat then will approve your registration, and then only you get the password to log into the system as a liaison officer. Once you log into the system as a liaison officer, you will be able to add several assistant officers, and that's how the team gets connected to the eGP system. I think that's this particular demonstration is just to improve your interest on using eGP, but in a training program we will precisely in detail give you all the functions and train you how to use this system accurately. Right now, I think I will quickly complete the remaining parts of my presentation, which I was doing earlier. Hope you can see my presentation slides back again. Can someone please confirm?
Not yet.
You are still seeing the web portal?
No, it's you and the website is down in one corner.
Okay. No worries, David. I will quickly explain what I wanted to say. At present, the eGP, the development in Sri Lanka, I will give you a brief summary. There are 1,884 vendors registered in the eGP system, and there are 227 procuring entities that have registered. So far, the government procuring entities have conducted 1,693 e-procurements using this system, and we have conducted several training programs for the procuring entities, vendors, and for the help desk. The current status of the eGP system, the version 1, there are version 1 and version 2. Version 1 has been launched, version 2 about to be launched, and the system is tested by the SL Cert, World Bank, and also ADB. Mr. David is now doing an assessment on the eGP system. So the system is tested by the international organizations, SL Cert and ICTA, and there are recommendations that have been provided to the system developer, and we are working on those recommendations. In addition to that, work in progress advising the existing contract, the system developers contract addendum to be signed, because the contract price earlier was estimated to 71.5 million, and then the government decided to expand the scope of the eGP system. Therefore, addendum had to be signed, and that particular development is going on. And also the resource allocations for the third-party agreement, non-disclosure agreement with the contractor, a core team establishment, a core team identified from the entity, 11 from were provided the specialists for the core team. There are about 10 members in this team. The requalification is done through this core team, so it's a very valuable thing. So the core team represents not only the ministry's department, but also the SOEs, provincial level, the secretariats, and all that. Also, the hardware infrastructure and security aspect improvement is presently going on. In addition to that, There is a EU grant through the World Bank of $3 million. It's a grant facility for the eGP system development and implementation, and that would be available from October 2022 onwards, in addition to the Asian Development Bank assistance on the international best practice and implementation. Also, ADB grant funding is available for the capacity building and also for the knowledge sharing programs, South Asia, and as I explained earlier, the open contracting data standards, also the ADB assistance is there. The future plan is to sign the addendum and to complete the cloud server infrastructure and also the procurement of third-party resources and improve the acceptance and the quality assurance and to complete all the procurement procedures by 2024. And that's the plan. For the time being, the eGP system is available for the shopping RFQ, request for quotation procurement process only. But later on, it will be available for national competitive bidding, international competitive bidding, consultancy procurement as well. So that's the basic overview of the Sri Lankan eGP system, the history and the implementation plan and the way forward. I think if you have any questions on this, you can raise right now, or otherwise I will join hands with the international eGP expert, Mr. David. David McDonald, actually the international expert of the Asian Development Bank, helping the Sri Lankan government on the best practices of eGP development. I think the next session would be David's. So I will also help with that. So thank you very much for listening and viewing the presentation and the demonstration I did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chamikara, for very good explanation and description about what we are going to do in Sri Lanka as in the eGP implementation process. So, Mr. Chamikara, shall we ask the audience to ask one or two questions? After that, we will go to the discussion.
Please, thank you.
Okay. Friends, now if you have any questions, at least two questions before going to have the discussions, we can have at least two questions. If someone wants to ask a question.
Okay, so good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So I have, first of all, I'd like to appreciate this achievement. Really, it is a necessary requirement for the country. My question is, when you get the registration from the vendors, do you update the registration yearly? Or sometimes when we call for bid, we want to understand their eligibility requirement. It's a big problem. So otherwise, when we call for bid, so unqualified bidders also will send the bid. So do you have any mechanism to tackle that kind of issues in your system?
Thank you very much for asking this question. I think the question has two parts. One is the registration and whether there is an annual renewal. Now, when the vendors register into the eGP system, for the local vendors, there is 5,000 rupees payment. That's a one-off payment for the registration. The annual renewal is free of charge, but however, annually, they have to do the renewal by going through their profile and making necessary amendments. So that is there. So once the eGP system is fully operational, the organizations will be requested by the government not to go ahead with the annual supplier registration anymore. But for the time being, that needs to be done, annual supplier registration. But meantime, suppliers are registering in the system, and their renewals they have to do annually, free of charge. That's how it is at the moment. And your next question about the next part of your question about the eligibility requirement. Now that actually needs to be processed by the procurement itself. So you may have to enter the qualification criteria and then filter these vendors. System has that facility. So you can enter the qualification, the eligibility requirements at the beginning. So those who fulfill that eligibility requirement, they have to mention that, then only they can go into the next level. And also, for the time being, we have only shopping procurement procedure. For the shopping procurements, when the vendors register into the eGP system, they actually mention on what particular certificates they do have, and also for what are the goods, works and services they provide. Accordingly, the procuring entities will get the list of the vendors, and then they have to select by themselves the vendors. Certain organizations, they still have the annual supplier registration. So according to their supplier registration details, they select the vendors. Hope I answered your question. Is it clear?
Mr. Lopugamage, is it clear? I think.
Yeah, it's well clear.
So someone else, if anyone wants to ask any questions related to the presentations today or eGP in general.
So there are two hands has been raised. If we check.
Mr. Kapila.
Yeah, I think, can you hear me please?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Actually, this is relevant to the evaluation, after the receiving quotations. I want to know whether actually evaluation should be done as per the evaluation criteria. So, and evaluation now, sample inspection, sometimes sample inspection, feedback from sample inspection should be considered when evaluating. So, is there any way of submitting any inputs about this sample inspection? What are the provisions given in this?
Thank you for your question. That question also have two parts. The evaluation criteria is actually there in the eGP system. So, so if you want to conduct the electronic evaluation, the liaison officer first of all has to mention to the system that this procurement should go through the electronic procurement process. Certain organizations now, the e-procurement evaluation process might not exactly match their requirements, so that they have to identify whether they can use the system for electronic evaluation. Otherwise, they can download after the electronic opening, they can download all the information, all the documents, the price schedules, the specifications submitted by the vendors, and that can be sent to the evaluation committee, and the evaluation can be conducted manually. But system-based evaluation is as per the evaluation criteria. It has the preliminary evaluation first of all. After the preliminary evaluation is conducted, it checks the major and minor deviations. If there are major deviations, the vendors would not go through anymore. Those who have minor deviations and if there are no deviation, they can go into the next step, which is the technical evaluation. And after the technical evaluation, those who get selected go into the financial evaluation. And at the end, the post-qualification criteria is also there. Then the TEC report gets generated by this system, and that goes to the procurement committee. And then they send their final recommendation to the procuring entity, and the procuring entity do the electronic award. So that's the process, and that covers the evaluation criteria. The other part of the question you raised about the samples. Now, in eGP systems, this have actually two aspects. The sample can be provided, And so when the samples are provided, that has to be done physically. So in the bidding document, it has to be mentioned clearly at what point the samples should be provided. Most organizations, when it comes to e-procurement, they are actually doing this practice. So that practice does not affect the electronic evaluation process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kapila, for asking a good question. Then, Mr. Taisuke, do you want to contribute anything you have to contribute for this discussion or any question?
Yes, just as one question. In fact, two questions. Chamikara, first of all, thank you so much for the clear presentation, which is very useful. I just wonder, as of now, how many staffs are working for eGP Secretariat? And could you confirm that the plan you presented will be proceeded? I expect that some budgetary shortage or whatever in Sri Lankan government, but still you can confirm that this progress can be seen.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Tai, for the question. At present, there are 15 project officers working for the eGP Secretariat, in addition to the 2 local consultants and the 1 international consultant provided by ADB. These 15 officers include the project director, deputy project director, the procurement specialist, ICT specialist, capacity building officers, ICT officers. So in addition to these, the government is planning to hire the third-party resources, and the World Bank, the EU grant will be utilized to hire the third-party resources. In addition to that, ADB, I think, had agreed to provide certain consultants when it is required. So government is expecting to contact ADB also for further assistance on consultants.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Taisuke. So I hope you got the clear answer from Mr. Ranatunga. So, Mr. Ranatunga, shall we have the discussion? Then after that, we can give them another time for the question and answer.
Yes. Yes, please.
Shall we have interview with Mr. David?
Yeah. Good afternoon, David.
Good afternoon, Shamakira.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion, having watched this so far. The questions you sent me, I've actually written answers to, and I have a document which has got the questions and the answers on. What I'm going to suggest is that I put that document up on the screen so people can see it. And then as we go through each one, if they've got any subsidiary questions, maybe 1 or 2 or something, they answer those. What do you think?
I think that's great, David.
Okay, I'll see if I can put the document up on the screen. Just hold on, here it goes. Can you see it on the screen? No, I've got to go to, sorry, I've got to go to, where's the, I've got to go to the share, haven't I? Oh, come on. Oops. Oh, now I've lost it completely. Sorry, I've got a problem here. There. I've got
David, right next to the leave button, there is a button called share.
Yes, but I've lost the. Let me go back. If I close that, go back. Yeah, I've lost the screen itself. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Ah, there it is. Now if I go and try and now I've lost the document. Just hold on. Sorry about this. My document's disappeared. I'll just have to go and get it again. Where has it gone?
Sorry about that, David. We can do the discussion also. I have the questions with me.
Okay, just let me try because I think it'll be a lot. I'm sorry to hold everybody up.
That's okay.
I need to get so I can get to. Oh dear. I can't get away from the screen because my document has disappeared. Ah, there we go. Now I might be able to get it. C, no. Oh, where is it?
Shamikar, if we can get a presentation, then we can share.
Yeah, that is also possible, David. If you can send it to myself or.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it now. Where is it? Revised full assessment draft is in there. Oh dear, it's not there. Oh dear, come on. Sri Lanka. This would be it. I'm in the wrong one, that's why. Contract documents and guides. Little A, B. Comments. An eGP. Oh, where is it? Contract. Oh, no, it's... Oh, God, where is it? Oh, I've got it back. Sorry, I've got it back now. Now I just need to be able to get back onto Teams. There's Teams and there's the document. So I open it up. Oh, then the Teams thing disappears.
I think first we need to open the PowerPoint, then after that we need to share.
Open the PowerPoint.
Yeah, David, your questions are they in PowerPoint or in Word document? I think David, your questions in a Word document or in a PowerPoint?
Yes, they're in a Word document.
Yeah, you open the Word document first.
Just open the document first.
Okay, I've opened it and it's up on the screen, but I've lost the Teams screen, so I can't go to share to get it to share.
Yeah, understand.
It is below.
David, in your taskbar, there is the Microsoft Teams sign. You can Can you see? You just click that.
Okay, that's got me back to that.
Teams. Yeah, now there is the button.
If I do that, then I lose the document.
Oh.
When you share, the document will open.
Okay, all right. Let's go to share.
Open the Teams. Close to leave button, left in leave button, share with arrow. Click that. Click on that.
Yes, I've clicked on that.
Then screen sharing. share the screen.
Yeah, but it's not desktop window.
Desktop or screen sharing.
Go to
desktop.
screen. Hang on, if I go to screen. Now I've got something that says
now we can
presenting
see.
give control.
Now we can see.
You can see it?
Yeah.
Yes, David, we can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me enlarge it so I get it as big as possible.
Sure.
How is that? Is that readable?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay. Shamakari, you ask the questions, which are all in bold, and then I'll deal with the answers.
Yes, David. My first question was, why do you think eGP is this much important in governance?
Okay. The eGP has a database. Good eGP systems have a relational database. And once you put this database in, it provides a wealth of information for audit, for transparency issues, authorised persons who can do certain things, and it's recorded, who made critical decisions. From the data, you can extract trends in procurement, which you can use for procurement. It might identify problems. And this is why a lot of countries now who originally set up their systems without necessarily a full database are looking at online contracting data standards. The database is extremely important. You can't exercise governance of a system and have the control that you want unless you have the information. It's very important.
Thank you very much, David. David, we know that you have a lot of expertise, experience and knowledge in electronic government procurement. We have used your knowledge so far in the Sri Lankan eGP system development also, and you are assessing our system and giving us the guidance on the developing and implementing the eGP system. We would like to know the countries you have experienced, the countries you have consulted on eGP development and implementation. And can you please briefly explain the participants, the Sri Lankan participants? There are over 300 procurement practitioners from Sri Lanka. Over 300 is here today from the country. So they would like to know about your experience, the countries you have consulted, and please elaborate a bit on that.
Okay. In terms of the countries, a lot of them were in India, Chhattisgarh, Kerala, Orissa, Assam, Karnataka, West Bengal, Bihar, Uttarakhand and Karnataka, Nepal, Bhutan and the Philippines. And basically the approach, or if you look at it, to do that assessment, you look at how strong are your institutions, the government, things of that nature. What technology do you have available to you? How are you going to resource it? What is the state of the users, small business? What plans and what agreements do you have with small business? Do you have the legislation to support this? Do you have independent organisations to be able to audit and to hear complaints and things of that nature? If I look at what I considered was the best approach then to implementing it, and I'll call it the mature approach, these people had assessed existing systems of other countries. and sometimes 3 or 4 of them. They looked at having a competent management and necessary resources. And they got that information often from other countries. They looked at this will be an end-to-end system. It will go right from procurement planning right through to monitoring the result, the performance of the contractors, whether the result was the outcome they were expecting. They'll use online training almost universally. They'll have a very strong legal guidance and governance and monitoring from government. E.g., the Indian states particularly used a major national system and adapted it for their own use. Jamaica, I spent a lot of time with them. They gradually developed it, but they did review something like 4 countries. The Eastern Caribbean countries, 5 countries got together and to identify a system that they could all use, and I was directly developed initially in the West Australian system. The key issue for me that comes out of it, if possible, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. If you can get a mature system that governments have already used, then it's a safer approach. If you take people, organisations that have not done this before, they might be very good, I'm not saying they're not, but invariably there will be some problems because it's a very complex process to implement what I would call an end-to-end system.
Thank you very much, David. You have a lot of experience, and almost all the continents you have traveled and assisted the governments around the world in implementing eGP. My next question is, are there any highlights during your international career as an eGP international expert?
Yes, I've chosen, I think, 3. The first was the development of the Jamaican eGP environment over a period of 6 years. My early consultancy, in fact, I think my first consultant job was with Jamaica, and they seemed to like what I've done, or I did, and then they kept employing me over a fair period, and eventually we got to their system. They actually assessed 5 different system vendors to actually make the choice eventually of what system they were going to use. The second one was assessing procurement environment in 6 Pacific Island countries and 4 organisation of the Eastern Caribbean countries to set up a common system. What really stood out these were small island countries, the ones in the Pacific much smaller than the ones in the Caribbean. And it was interesting the way those countries slowly worked together to provide a common picture of where they thought they were going to go. The OECS set up a common system. The last one was avoiding a potentially risky situation. I did a project which was looking at assessing major procurement projects in one country. They were building a pipeline that was meant to be 33 kilometres long. We flew out to the jungles in a helicopter, and when I went along it, I found out it was only 29 kilometres long. And I thought, all right, just keep quiet. We're out in the jungle with helicopters. When I got back, I went down to I looked at the contract and found that if there was money left over, they could spend it on spear lines running off the main one. I thought, yeah, well, that's a good idea. I went down to the finance department in this organisation, and they gave me the files on that, and they'd spent $50,000. About $6 million had gone missing. So I quietly left the country and put that in my report at a later stage. There's been a few people, a few procurement consultants bumped off in a number of countries over the years because they presented a threat to the governments or big companies or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you, David. Those experience sharing is very much important for the Sri Lankan officials as well. Yeah, my next question, I have selected, the actual outcome of this knowledge sharing session we have conducted for the Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan. So for the interest of the viewers here, would you kindly mention what are the key components needs to be addressed in eGP development and implementation? We have discussed this with other countries.
Sure.
So please summarize that if you don't mind.
Okay. I've listed them and I won't spend a lot of time on each. Government leadership in terms of resource, management, regulatory organisations, consultation with business, institutes, education, legislation. Very important. The government's got to be right behind it. Otherwise, they can say, oh, we're still working on an act and we've been doing that for 10 years and nothing happens. Human resource planning, initial development expertise. How are you going to train all those people at the start? National training with a number of organisations involved. Setting up procurement as a major career stream. I mean, procurement usually takes up 15 to 25% of the government budget, but it is usually underrepresented in the career stream. And again, online training. Third one, planning and management. Review other systems, competent strategic planning, right from the start, consultation with business and all the other stakeholders, an implementation plan that is assessed, performance indicators for your implementation, and the ability to be able to review progress as you go along. Policy, procurement principles of open competition, access to information, assistance to local business and transparency are the key areas. Legislation and regulation. Do you have a Procurement Act and directives? An independent regulatory organisation, not government. You need to get the procurement process, to put it bluntly, away from the ministers. Sure, they can make a decision, yes, we want to do this, we want to build this highway, and at the end, they can see the report, but you need to keep them at arm's length. That's where the major problems occur. We had 2 ministers in Australia, both in jail now, for doing just that. Link legislation with the E-Transactions Act, E-Crimes, data protection, privacy, access to information. Procurement, as I've already said, is the most corrupt area in government, so the legislation regulation issue is very, very important. Infrastructure and web services, good access to the internet. Can people access it? Is it workable? Expertise to develop the network. You'll probably find you need to do more development of the network to be able to get particularly small businesses, or might be remote businesses, to be able to access what's going on. 7, standards. Technical procurement and management standards, contract standards, standard bidding documents, and procurement codes for the information. That makes it simpler for people to use the system, and there's a consistency in using the system. Private sector integration, you need private sector support. If it's the first time you're introducing an eGP system, there are going to be lots of doubts and questions as to whether this is going to be better than the current situation. Consultation and integration, sometimes the major business areas will want certain things like the labelling of goods or a whole lot of factors which are factors in the everyday conduct of their businesses. Systems, develop an end-to-end eGP system and link it to the financial and industry systems that are appropriate. For example, your financial system, so you can have online payments, etc., things of that nature. Any questions?
Thank you very much, David. Any questions, participants? David was actually explaining the loan process. So if you have questions in addition to what I'm presenting, you can raise them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. David, for answering. I think I have a number of questions raised by Mr. Chamikar, and you explain your experience, international experience on how eGP implementing those countries and all. So then we will open the forum for asking questions from our group. So please, friends, if you have any questions to ask from these speakers, two speakers, so you can raise that questions now.
Dr. Vijayakon, is that okay? There are another few questions we wanted to present to the audience, including this particular interview. So is that okay if I raise those questions from David?
It's okay, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. David, my next question is about, especially you have recommended certain organizations in Sri Lanka to get their support in implementing eGP. So why do you think the government support institutions to provide procurement education and qualifications are important?
Okay, procurement's much more than knowing how to use the system. Procurement's a major profession, 15 to 25% of most government budgets, and it needs technical institution and university involvement. It's an underrepresented profession in most countries. That's changed a lot in the last 20 years, I will admit. But if you think about it, you can often find a middle-level manager who's earning, I'll put a figure on it, $25,000 a year, and they're managing a contract for 60 million. So it's important that you've got people who really know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you, David. The next question is about the training. The training for system vendors and the procuring entity users are very much important. But it's a huge, formidable task. In Sri Lanka, we have 2,500 training government organizations and about 300,000 vendors. So what are the ways of achieving this? Actually, this might be helpful for SLEDA trainers and the planning and the development officers as well.
Sure.
What is your view on that, David?
Well, first of all, you need to survey the current level of procurement knowledge from potential units. What users? What's your starting point? You need to identify the number to be trained initially and on an ongoing basis. You use online training with testing, consult with training groups, organisations, technical and university institutions. The key issue about online training is in most countries it's more accessible. It means that the people who want to be trained can access it when it's appropriate for them, and you can have testing on that training which tells the participants, do I really understand this? Because I can I can go through a training session and then later be tested on that session, and I can find out whether I've really understood what's happening.
Thank you, David. The next question is about the Multilateral Development Bank eGP guidelines. When we talk about e-procurement, if you don't say something about the MDB guidelines, I think it's something missing. So what is the importance of MDB guidelines?
These have been developed over a long time, and they set recognised common standards for the development and use of eGP systems. This is why the MDBs have one common set, because when you boil it all down, there are some key things that you've got to do to have a good functioning eGP system.
Thank you, David. Moving on to the next question. The barriers and obstacles, that's, we need to identify in advance, then only we will be able to face them properly. So what are the barriers or obstacles countries would face during the implementation?
Okay, I won't spend a lot of time on this question because it's actually the reverse of the question above. I think it was question 4. And the barriers are if you have insufficient of the things that I discussed before. These are the key things that you've got to address to have a good implementation, and if you don't, then you're going to have problems. So I won't spend a lot of time on that. It's the same issues, but in reverse, if you like.
Thank you, David. Now, next question is about, it's actually internal to Sri Lanka, but you, as a person who've been working with us for the last few, not months, years, you know about this. So the financial crisis we are facing, there are a lot of things behind it. But how do you think the Sri Lanka should overcome from the current economic crisis? What is your view on that?
Okay. Now, I'm not an economic advisor, so I won't talk about the overall Sri Lanka. I can only really talk about what the eGP Secretariat might do under the circumstances that Sri Lanka currently faces. So you need to attract resources to complete the implementation of Promise. You need to focus on system acceptance, training, consultation, improving the procurement process, reducing problems with the system, having clear standard bidding documents and other guides. And the third thing is supporting the government for developing a Procurement Act, an independent regulator, removing business and technical restrictions that slow down the procurement process, and so that more time can be spent on planning and performance management.
Thank you, David. The final question from me is as an expert, you have assessed the eGP development and implementation in Sri Lanka. So as per your experience with the Sri Lanka, what are your recommendations for successful implementation of eGP here in Sri Lanka?
Okay. These recommendations are actually in my draft report, which I've just written, but I don't think they're necessarily a secret. So you might as well see. Now, these could change. It's only in draft now. So recommendation 1 is the ADB provide targeted financial and human resource support to the eGP Secretariat that is coordinated with the funding available from the EU and World Bank grant, which you mentioned previously. So that's the first one. The second one, the potential funding provided by the ADB could target the following key system issues yet to be implemented that are critical to Promise's effectiveness. Development of a relational database, OCDS, that's in progress. Streamline the process that the users use, so significant times in time and finance resources are achieved by the system. Incorporate planning, contract management and performance and complaint data assessment as modules within the system. That's the idea of an end-to-end system. Review the guides and other documents provided to ensure procurement is delivered on a similar and coordinated national basis. Support and implement the resourcing of the system to conduct open competitive bidding for national and foreign bidders. Recommendation third, and this is providing support to the things outside just doing the system. The eGP Secretariat provide input to the following issues: the proposed procurement law, the proposed reinstatement of the National Procurement Commission, public access to procurement information on Promise E. These are external things which are very important to the conduct of them and have been identified by a number of reports to be important. Last one is that the eGP Secretariat employ eGP technical experts to work with the SCANA, the developer, to address the issues raised in the World Bank report. They raised a number of issues about how the system operated and whether there was more streamlined ways of doing things. One of the things that the system has to demonstrate is this is quicker and easier and more complete than when we did it manually. So they're the 4 recommendations that I've made so far. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the recommendations and answering all the questions raised by me precisely and accurately. And thank you very much. And over to you, Dr. Vijay Paul.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. David and Mr. Rantunga. So then I think we will open the forum for our friends. So if you have any questions to ask from these 2 speakers, so you can have that now. So, any questions there? Even our faculty members, if you have any questions or any clarifications.
Tamikara, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Tamikara, I have one question to ask you. Tamikara, now you conducted some training programs developing this eGP knowledge and skills. According to your experience, then do you think is this a biggest challenge for you? The developing knowledge and skills for the public officer in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lasanta, for your question. Yeah, it's a great challenge and it's a formidable task, like I explained earlier. Now, that is why we want to take hands with the organizations like you, SLEDA, because eGP Secretariat itself cannot complete this task, and it's an ongoing thing. And when it comes to training, there should be a sustainability. So a consultant like myself or David cannot complete the entire task. So it's the responsibility of the government training organizations like you to take it forward. And also, on the other hand, we are conducting a training of trainer programs. Now, in the provincial level, for example, if there are 5 ministries, we are training 5 trainers. Last week we had the session in Jaffna. So we asked them to nominate 5 trainers from their end. So likewise, we are going to create a pool of trainers, and their duty is to train the other officers and to take it forward. But especially the organizations like SLIDA and the assistance of you is really required. And thank you very much for providing it.
Right. Thank you, Chamika.
So, Ashika Nana is want to ask some questions. Ashika.
Chamika, now I continue the your answer again. Then you told developing skills, knowledge and skills of the public officer is the biggest challenge you. According to the now your experience, then what are the biggest factor for that challenges? Why what is the reason? Age of the public officers, or then they reluctant to the change, or then what are the factors according to your experience?
Yeah. No, actually, most people were, thinking initially the government officers are reluctant. But in my experience, to be honest with you, I didn't actually find that out. People were very much enthusiastic and having the interest on learning it. And but there was some sort of a challenge with the procurement-related knowledge of the officials, so that needs to be adhered. But the main challenge is the volume. Volume is what we need to address, Lasantha.
Right.
Okay. I think.
Okay. Thank you, Chamika.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope the most of the question asked related to the training, and also we got very clear understanding from Mr. David by listening his experience, international experience, sharing that experience with working with I think number of countries. So that experience very much important for us too, I think, doing training as well as implementing this eGP in Sri Lanka. So I think Mr. Chamikar also, he explained the process of implementing eGP system in Sri Lanka. So that's also very good explanation, and I hope most of our friends, those who listen today, got very clear understanding about eGP implementation process. So this, thank you very much, both speakers, especially for initiation this particular one with our SLIDA.
to have this type of webinar series and webinar. So then after that, we thought to have this type of webinar, especially with you people, because you are the people who start in the country. So therefore, I think very good opportunity for our all friends you got today. Have this international experts and also the national experts on this eGP implementation. So to wind up our session webinar, may I call upon our senior consultant to deliver the vote of thanks. Mr. Gangadhar, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, giving this opportunity. And I think many participants got what really they wanted to have about the rollout plan of eGP systems in Sri Lanka. So let me do quickly the vote of thanks on behalf of this brilliant panel. Actually, we have to thank Mr. Shamikara for coordinating every aspect from their side, and Mr. Moisi Miyamo from the World ADB side, Senior Procurement Officer, for giving courage for the Shamikara and team to conduct this session. And of course, Mr. David McDormand, thanks for sharing your expertise with Sri Lanka, and hope that we would be able to come up with a good eGP planning and implementation step in Sri Lanka. And actually, on behalf of the Director General of SRIDA, I have to thank Mr. Lasantha Gamage as well as Mr. Andaloku Gamage. I think you can see that he volunteered to give his contribution for this program to participate. There are some people who are really watching and listening under the National DIPCA program here now is conducting as SRIDA. And I also saw that many of our chief secretaries, government agents and senior public officials were listening and sharing their experience in a crowd of more than 300 participants which appear on the screen. So on behalf of Director General of SRIDA, I would like to thank for all your contributions and commitment and being with us for a valuable seminar like this. So last but not least, thanks Dr. Vijay Kon, myself, for moderating this session together with all of our colleagues. And thank you very much and have a good weekend. Until you see with another seminar, then bye-bye.